What's up, boys? Class 404 here again with a fresh take on some of the current Destiny drama. Lots to discuss today. But before we begin, I wanted to take a moment to thank Josh4848 for commenting the details about the Bungie GDC interview highlighting upper management's perspective on over-delivery. A problem that I think I want to make a video on in the future. There's a lot of issues with this. But what there isn't an issue with is the fact that my man got it spot on. He hit exactly what I was looking for, and he did it really quickly. So, shout out to Josh4848, absolute champion. If you see him, give him some love. And speaking of love, thank you guys. The positivity from the last video. I know a lot of these topics are a little heavy, man. So having people be so positive and you know, and offering their opinions and everything, it's really great to see, man. I think the Destiny community needs more of that, you know? We need more of people willing to share their opinions and having an open field to do so without being completely flamed for it. So, thank you guys. Thank you for everything so far. And I'm gonna keep doing right by you. Speaking of which, today's video is a fucking banger, so let's get to it.
Today's subject:
community management.
For those of you who have touched grass this week, a Reddit post blew up on the Destiny subreddit. They called out Bungie for not reaching out to their community in the way they used to. Many people in the community, including a particularly sexy individual, have been making react content to this post, but as you all know, I'm the refined video essay complainer, so it's time for a high-quality breakdown of exactly what's going on here. The title for today's well-constructed rant is, Bungie, you literally made the team's account so you can provide safety for your CMs, community managers, as they continue to do their jobs. Please actually use the account. Now, while I do make content criticizing Bungie's actions quite often, I very rarely feel the need to look at their social media. These teams accounts, from what I can gather, are a means of making a single account that all the different community managers can do outreach through. This way, people with a particular hatred towards an individual CM have a harder time distinguishing which post is made by which CM. Actually a fairly decent solution. Because we'll be using Aztec Ross's video a little later, and I don't have anything to point out for most of the beginning of this post, I'll let him do the honors.
I'm not saying you should expose your employees to people who might actually harm them. As someone who has been threatened and actually almost attacked at the workplace, I completely understand where you guys are coming from. That said, it would be beneficial for everyone if you use that account more than you currently do. Whether it's actually a response to specific feedback, tweets, posts every now and then, or responses that explain why certain things are unfeasible, so you can receive less feedback that you can't do anything with, or whatever. I just think it'd be better for everyone.
Now, before we jump into the edits, I would like to say no matter how many times Bungie help replies to stupid complaints that can't reasonably be fixed, those questions will still be asked. Anyone who's worked in customer service knows this fairly well. I've even had the same customer ask the exact same question to me on 3 separate occasions, as if the answer was going to change. This is just part of being a community manager, and all you can do is smile and try to move past it. Next up, OP makes a few clarifications in the edits. 1. Harassment is unacceptable. I am not without empathy, and I do understand that Bungie is trying to protect their employees. Now, I don't think it's a hot take to say that harassing individual employees is stupid, especially if the harassment is personal. I think poking fun here and there is perfectly fine, especially with some of the more prominent and public figures of the Bungie team, but doxing is 100% never called for in this situation. If you are unaware, Jesse James Comer, or as I like to call him, Mr. Coomer, was recently sued for harassment of Bungie community manager DMG. Sending pizzas to their personal residence as some sort of cheese-veiled threat. Mr. Coomer, unsurprisingly, lost his court case against the multi-billion-dollar company, and is now expected to pay a little less than $500,000 in damages. And while some brainlets out there may say this is going too far, a more reasonable person would argue sending a message through Mr. Coomer may well save a life.
Kansas man fatally shot by a police sniper at the door of his home after a prank call is now suing the city of Wichita and the officers involved. Andrew Finch was the target of a so-called swatting hoax in which a California man called Wichita police with a fake story about a shooting at Finch's home.
Back in 2017, a 28-year-old Kansas man was shot and killed by police in his own home due to a swatting attack. Now, I'm sure most of us know what swatting is, but just in case, swatting is the use of an anonymous 911 call to send police to someone's home under the guise of a particularly dangerous situation, usually a hostage situation of some kind. This way, heavily armed teams of local police arrive, believing they may have to kill whoever is inside the home. This happens to many public figures, to the point where it'd be difficult to count how many videos have been made on the subject. And logically, what's the next step after people in the community start finding the addresses of the community managers? Now, I do have a problem with OP's statement here. Quote unquote, I do understand that Bungie is trying to protect their employees. Bungie is trying to protect their employees, yes, but in the wrong ways, and I'd argue for the wrong reasons. But I'm going to save that bombshell wrapped up in this statement for the big reveal. So for the next edit, 2. Bungie did reply with some clarifications and a suggestion to use their own forums. Not that they'll always reply, but they might. Now, this one is littered with issues. I'm going to be saying this a lot, so get used to it now, but Bungie is a multi-billion-dollar company. They've been skating by so far using Twitter and Reddit as a customer service helpline alongside the intended uses for businesses of their size. The problem with customer service is it's a variable cost and it's quite difficult to predict. Using social media, Bungie skirted this problem. They've cut the usual costs for developing an interface that complaints are fielded within, and avoid having to respond to stupid or inane requests because users are accustomed to being ignored by the other corporate overlords. If they had an interface developed with the direct purpose of addressing community or individual feedback, they'd likely spend millions of dollars in development and moderation. Instead, Reddit mods do it for free. But don't forget though, Bungie sees more money yearly than we'll ever see in our lives. Millions of dollars is no excuse for providing lackluster or non-existent post-purchase services. If they want to switch to their forums as a means of addressing player feedback without compromising the privacy of their staff, then they should do so without compromise. The addition of "not that we'll always reply" is a conditional that protects the team from the responsibility tied to running your own community space. It comes off as, well, we aren't always there, so... Strange, considering your job title is community manager. But of course, this is a rewording of a Bungie reply. Maybe OP just made it sound worse than it is. Moving on. 3. Bungie. I'm happy you took the time to reply. I really am. At the same time, I'm scared. With how Lightfall went, I feel like this isn't the best time to engage left. However, I completely understand trying to keep your employees safe. I just hope Bungie finds a way to make things work for the game and their employees. Now, I couldn't say it better myself. Bungie certainly needs to shape up their community interaction after dropping a stinker as bad as Lightfall. Now, I don't know if you watched the last video. If you haven't, check it out real quick right now, man. It's good. It's a banger. But we covered why Lightfall wound up the way it did. With the amount of Stockholm Syndrome our community possesses, I think Bungie could have just been honest with the player base about what went wrong in the development cycle, and people would have been a-okay. Instead, they've been choosing to avoid the discussion entirely, claiming, "We're working on it, the story isn't done yet, so why are you judging it already?" As if we didn't spend our hard-earned Robux on the expansion. So as our friend Kruggles30 pointed out, Bungie did reply. So let's go ahead and take a look at their response. Appreciate the feedback. Unfortunately, devs who aren't even CMs are still being harassed just because they work at Bungie. So using the CM account on Reddit will put a bigger target on all of the CM's backs. This straight up doesn't make any fucking sense. If developers are being targeted because they work for Bungie, not because they're a CM, how will posting on the community management team account affect the overall amount of backlash employees are receiving? Even disregarding that, if users aren't able to decipher which manager is posting, how are they going to target any particular employee? As much as I love pointing out these logical fallacies, let's go ahead and move on to what I think is the most important string of this whole debacle. I completely understand the want to go back to how we used to respond all the time here, but that time has passed. Until everyone can feel safe again, I wouldn't expect to see many responses from us here for the foreseeable future. Did you catch it? That time has passed. These are the words of someone who knows a decision has been made and finalized. This latchkey statement is exactly what we needed to put this whole puzzle together. But before I give you the whole picture, we'll need to take a trip outside of the Destiny universe, to Final Fantasy. You may be aware that Final Fantasy XVI recently released to a great reception by many players and critics. There's of course the stray criticism about lack of diversity in a game developed by East Asians. The poor Animal Crossing enjoyers haven't figured out the same people that make sushi and squishmallows are actually some of the most racist people on the planet. If you can read Japanese, spend 2 minutes playing on the League of Legends Japan server. You'll see what I mean. But there is another group making a complaint that won't get me demonetized. The game is abandoning its roots. Final Fantasy has always been a turn-based RPG. Except for that one time where it was an MMO, and that other time that it was a racing game, and this time where it was a rhythm game, and a tactical game, and a snowboarding game, and a third-person shooter, and a pinball game, and a tower defense game, and a cookie clicker spin-off, but we'll just ignore those for now. The mainline games have been completely centered around turn-based RPG elements. Final Fantasy XVI changed over to an action RPG style. This left the fans with smoother brains a little upset that Square Enix would betray them in such a way. And while I'm sure some of the more die-hard fans are sending death threats into the void, you don't see the whole community erupting into flames whenever Square Enix makes a tweet. Why? Because Square Enix never pretends to be your friend. All of their posts are absolutely drenched in corporate monotony. They keep things civil by keeping the community distant. So how does this relate back to Destiny? Well, all the community managers for Destiny 2 have call signs, like they're in Top Gun or some shit. They're introduced to the community as if they're joining the one big happy family that is Destiny 2. And it's not just the CMs. Bungie has been playing on our feels for years. Destiny 1 only sold so well despite its flaws because Bungie did such a great job with the Halo franchise. Because Bungie at one point focused on putting cool shit in the game as much as possible, Destiny got off the ground. If Halo wasn't one of the highest grossing game franchises of all time, Bungie never would have dreamed of releasing Destiny in the state it was in. It would have killed the game on launch. By being our friends, we excused content being stripped from the game to be made into DLC. Then cosmetic microtransactions, then the dogshit story of Destiny 2 vanilla, then the XP throttling scandal, then content droughts, then over-monetization, and now Lightfall. People are looking up and realizing maybe they aren't our friends after all. They feel betrayed, spit on, taken for a ride. And I don't believe Bungie did this all on purpose. I think it's just a hole they dug for themselves, and now it's too deep to get out without consequences. They kept up the whole friendly, we're listening act for so long now, but don't have shit to show for it. People were suggesting a legendary story mode back in Taken King, and now Bungie wants candy and a hand job for making it almost 10 years later. And we gave it to them. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with some sore shoulders right now. How many aspects of community feedback have actually been listened to within a reasonable time span? Go on, name one. So now Bungie sees the error of their ways. Getting fucked by a corporation, everybody expects that. But getting fucked by your friend, well, that pisses people off. Bungie wants to withdraw, hide away back into the shell, act like they never interacted with the community feedback in the first place. And not just to cut ties. Mr. Coomer's recent lawsuit shows that legislature is willing to litigate against reasonable consumer-employer technology practices. In a less jargon-filled way, protection of employees' anonymity and safety while operating online now has precedent showing it needs to be upheld. While the responsibility was only put on the consumer in this instance, an argument could be made that the employer has just as much responsibility to uphold the right to safety of their employees as the consumer does. If Bungie would continue to interact with the community as much as they do now, an amount that some would argue is outside the industry standard, it would open the door for employer negligence suits filed by the community managers. Bungie CMs said it themselves. We used to respond all the time, but that time has passed. So now that all the cards are on the table except for one, let's go ahead and take a look at what Aztec Ross thinks the solution for this problem is.
Should Bungie stop communicating? Should Bungie just stop? Should Bungie go dark? Should Bungie pull a Luke Smith right now? Yo, guys, have y'all been to Luke Smith's Twitter? This is Luke Smith's Twitter. He tweets like once a year, maybe twice. Luke, this is his profile picture. Wait. This is his cover picture. Ah, you like it? No, seriously. The point I'm trying to make on that, should Bungie take that approach? Should they just go dark? Should they just go dark until final shape? The reveal in August. Just go dark. Look, this is going to sound crazy. No one's going to like what I'm going to say right now. Go dark. But if this is something that's actually taking an emotional toll on your team, dude, just go dark.
Brilliant. Bravo. Now we know why the Destiny community is doomed. Because the people at the top are capable of taking a momentary glance at a complicated issue, drawing the first solution that comes to mind, and shilling it out for the masses. No, going dark is not the solution. Not because I don't think it'd be cool, not because I think the public-facing employees are undeserving of some sort of reprieve. Ladies and gentlemen, our final card. If you've been paying attention so far, you may already know what it is. Bungie is a business. A business with assets you can't feasibly imagine. A tech business with some of the most talented employees in the world. A business with the intention of making as much profit as possible. Does anyone here believe that Bungie is incapable of preventing a bunch of Redditors from doxing their community managers? Does anyone think they don't have the talent or the money to protect their employees? The onus is not on the community to somehow talk no jutsu these morons who want to waste their time ruining someone else's day. The onus is not on the community managers to quote-unquote grow a spine and deal with it. The responsibility lay with Bungie to put forward the effort, develop some systems to protect their employees, whether it be through shared team profiles or by setting up VPNs or whatever other security measures would be adequate to protect the employees while working from home. A lawsuit will only deter those with common sense. The crazies will not stop. Retracting from the community during a time of turmoil will only make those who did nothing wrong feel burned and rejected, spiteful even. The correct choice is for Bungie to fork over the cash to take care of their employees correctly. I promise you, continuing down any other path will damage the relationship Bungie has with their fans. Going dark will also likely lead to massive layoffs across every public-facing department. Like I said, businesses are in it for profit, not charity. All those employees writing the TWABs and designing the ads and socials for Bungie, they all get put on leave, if not entirely laid off. Making a statement like this is not only foolish, it's dangerous, especially with some of the decisions coming from Bungie's upper management lately. So there you have it. While we all sit around bickering about whose fault it is, Bungie counts up the stacks they're going to save in reduced community outreach. Though I disagreed with many of the things he said, the late Michael Brooks did say one thing I think we should all take to heart. Be kind to individuals. Be ruthless to systems. In a world with plenty of issues, we all need to remember the person sitting in the chair across from us. Take some time today. Try to make someone else smile. I hope you fuckers have a good day. I'll see you on the next one.
I've seen better days. I spent a year in the darkest place. I got some stories I'd love to say. I couldn't think of a better way.